It was a cold evening and the sky was covered in heavy clouds. Rain poured down without stopping and the streets were almost empty. Lena sat inside her small house, which stood at the edge of the town. The walls were old and the roof leaked. Sometimes when it rained too hard. But it was all she had, and she had made it her little world. Lena was only 22 years old, but life had already tested her in many ways. She had lost both of her parents in an accident 3 years ago, and had been living alone ever since. To keep going, she worked 2 jobs. She served food at a diner during the day and cleaned offices at night. Most days, she came home so tired she barely had energy left to cook. But tonight, she had managed to make a small meal of soup and bread, and was looking forward to eating it in peace. As the rain continued to fall, she lit a candle and sat near the window, listening to the sound of raindrops hitting the glass. The silence was peaceful. But then suddenly there was a knock at the door. Lena's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone, especially on such a stormy night. She stood still for a moment, unsure of what to do. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Slowly, she walked to the door and asked, "Who is it?" A deep voice replied, "I'm sorry to bother you. My car broke down nearby. My son and I just need a place to stay dry for a little while. We won't trouble. You just a roof for the night." Lena hesitated. She didn't know the man. What if it was dangerous? But when she peeked through the curtain, she saw a man standing in the rain, holding a little boy close to him. The boy looked cold and wet, with a small backpack slung over his shoulders. The man looked tired, but there was something calm and polite about the way he stood there. Her heart softened. She looked again at the boy, who was probably no older than 6. She couldn't leave a child out in the cold like that. After a moment of thought, she opened the door. "You can come in," she said, "but just for tonight." The man nodded. Gratefully, "Thank you so much. I'm Daniel, and this is my son, Max." Lena stepped aside and let them in. Max gave her a shy smile as he walked past her, water dripping from his coat. Lena quickly brought out a towel and offered it to them. "You both look soaked," she said. "Let me get you something warm." She handed Max a blanket and invited them to sit on the old couch. The little boy sat quietly, his eyes scanning the room. Lena warmed up some soup and poured it into 3 bowls. She placed them on the small table and said, "It's not much, but it'll help warm you up." Daniel looked surprised. "You didn't have to go through all this trouble. We're really grateful." "It's okay," Lena said with a small smile. "You just look like you needed help." They ate together in silence for a few minutes. Lena noticed how gentle Daniel was with his son, carefully wiping his face and making sure he ate enough. Max was a quiet child but kept glancing at Lena with curiosity. She made a silly face at him once, and to her delight he giggled. Soon after, the power went out due to the storm. The room was lit only by candlelight now. Lena brought out 2 more candles and placed them around the room to keep it from getting too dark. "I'm sorry," she said. "This happens a lot when it rains." "It's okay," Daniel replied calmly. "This is better than sitting in a broken car all night." They sat together in the warm glow of the candles. Lena shared a little about her life, how she had been managing alone, the job she worked, and how she'd been saving every little bit of money to take some online classes. She didn't know why she was telling him all of this, but it felt easy to talk. Daniel didn't speak much about himself. He said only that he was traveling through town for some meetings and had taken a wrong turn. His phone battery had died, and with no signal in the area, he couldn't call anyone. Lena noticed how calm he remained through it all. Most people would be stressed or annoyed, but he just sat there, quietly listening and making sure Max was comfortable. As the rain continued outside, Max started to get sleepy. Lena gave him one of her pillows and let him rest on the couch. She brought an extra blanket and tucked him in gently. "He's a sweet kid," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "He's been through a lot, but you've made him smile tonight." "That means more than you know." Lena nodded, her heart warming at those words. "I know what it's like to feel alone." That night, Lena gave Daniel the couch and set up a small space for herself on the floor. She didn't sleep much, but she felt peaceful. Something about helping someone else made her feel less lonely. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The sun peeked through the clouds and birds chirped as if nothing had happened. Daniel stood up early and gently woke Max. Lena made them some tea and gave them directions to the nearest repair shop. Before leaving, Daniel took out a small notepad and wrote something down. "If you ever need anything, call this number," he said, handing her the paper. "You've done more than you know." Lena took it with a confused smile. "It was just one night," he looked at her kindly. "One night can mean everything." With that, Daniel and Max stepped out into the morning light and disappeared down the road, leaving Lena standing at the door, unsure of what had just happened, but feeling like something important had just begun. After Daniel and Max left that morning, Lena stood at her door for a long time, holding the small piece of paper in her hand. The number Daniel had given her was written in neat handwriting. She folded it carefully and placed it inside a drawer. Unsure if she would ever use it, days passed and life returned to its usual rhythm. Lena went back to her daily routine, waking up early, working long hours, and coming home late. But something had changed inside her. She often thought about that rainy night. She remembered the kindness in Daniel's eyes and the way Max had smiled at her silly jokes. It had only been one evening, yet it stayed in her mind like a memory. She didn't want to lose. Every now and then she would wonder about them. Who were they really? Why had Daniel not said much about his life? Something about him had felt different, like he wasn't just some random traveler. But Lena didn't ask too many questions that night. It hadn't felt right to push. He was quiet, kind, and full of respect, things she hadn't experienced much from others lately. One evening, while cleaning the office where she worked, Lena took a break and checked her phone. She had no messages, no missed calls, just like most days she had grown used to being alone. Most of her coworkers were friendly, but they all had their own lives. Lena had no close family left, and her world felt small. But she still held on to hope that something better was waiting for her. It was about 2 weeks after the night Daniel and Max had stayed with her, when something unexpected happened. Lena came home from work, tired and sleepy, and found an envelope stuck in her door. It had no stamp, just her name written in simple black ink. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a letter on thick, expensive paper. It read, "Dear Lena, we hope this note finds you well. We would like to invite you to a private charity event this Saturday evening. Transportation will be arranged for you. Formal attire is requested. We believe someone special wants to see you again. Warm regards, the Carter Foundation." Lena stared at the letter in shock. "The Carter Foundation?" she whispered. She had heard that name somewhere before. She picked up her phone and quickly searched it. What she saw surprised her. It was a large organization that supported children's education and health care. The founder's name was Daniel Carter. Her eyes widened. Daniel, could it be the same man? Her heart started to race. She looked at the date again. The event was in 2 days. She didn't own anything formal, and she had no idea what kind of place she was walking into. But something inside her said she had to go. That Saturday, a sleek black car arrived outside her home. A polite driver opened the door for her and greeted her by name. Lena had borrowed a simple but neat dress from a neighbor. She had fixed her hair the best she could and wore the only pair of black shoes she owned. The ride to the city was quiet. As they pulled up to the event location, Lena's mouth fell open. The building was tall and shining with lights. Expensive cars lined the front, and people in gowns and suits walked through large glass doors. She felt nervous but reminded herself that she had been invited for a reason. With her invitation card in hand, she walked inside. The hall was beautiful golden. Lights, soft music, and elegant decorations filled the room. People chatted politely and sipped drinks from fancy glasses. Lena felt out of place, but no one looked at her strangely. Then she heard the voice of the host through a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we gather to support a cause that's close to our hearts. But before we continue, let me introduce the founder of the Carter Foundation. Please welcome Mr. Daniel Carter." Applause filled the room as a tall man stepped onto the stage. Lena's eyes widened as she saw him. It was Daniel, the same man who had knocked on her door that stormy night. He was dressed in a sharp black suit and looked completely different in the bright lights. But it was him. Max was standing near the front row, smiling shyly at her. Daniel began speaking about the importance of kindness, of helping others even when you don't have much to give. His words were powerful but calm. Sometimes, he said, it only takes one person, one act of kindness, to remind you that the world still has good in it. As he continued, Lena stood quietly at the back, unsure what would happen next after the speech ended. Daniel stepped down from the stage and walked directly toward her. "I was hoping you'd come," he said with a gentle smile. Lena was surprised. "You're the founder of this whole foundation?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, I didn't say much before because I wanted you to treat us like regular people, and you did. You didn't care about who I was, you cared about Max, and that meant everything." Lena didn't know what to say. "I just did what I thought was right. That's exactly why I wanted you here," Daniel said. "There are too many people in this world who pretend to care. But you were real. You gave us shelter when we were strangers. You gave Max warmth. He still talks about that night." Lena looked over at Max, who gave her a small wave. She waved back, touched by the bond that had quietly formed between them. Daniel continued. "I want to talk more. Not just tonight. I believe you have a kind heart and strong values. People like you are rare, and I think there's a place for you in my company if you're open to it." Lena blinked in disbelief. "Your company?" Daniel nodded. "It's not charity. It's an opportunity. You've shown who you are when no one was watching. That tells me more than any resume ever could." Lena stood there, stunned. She had come from a small, quiet life and now found herself in a fancy hall, being offered a chance that felt like a dream. But the best part wasn't the lights or the clothes or even the offer. It was that someone had seen her for who she truly was, and someone had cared enough to remember. Lena returned home from the charity event that night with a heart full of emotions she couldn't quite describe. The fancy car dropped her off at the same small house on the edge of town, but something inside her had changed. She stood at her door, holding her heels in one hand, and looked up at the sky. The stars were out, calm and peaceful, as if the world was telling her that something new had begun. She stepped inside, closed the door, and sat quietly on her bed. Everything felt like a dream. Just a few days ago, she was living a quiet life, working long hours and wondering if anyone even noticed her. And now, Daniel Carter, a man who turned out to be a millionaire CEO, had personally invited her to a grand event and offered her a job at his company. Her mind kept replaying his words. "It's not charity, it's an opportunity." That line stayed with her. He wasn't giving her a favor out of pity. He truly saw something in her. The next morning, Lena found an email in her inbox. It was from the Carter Group, a kind lady named Ms. Joanna had written to her saying she would guide Lena through the steps to join the company. The email explained that the role being offered was an entry-level position in the company's project department. Lena would be trained and supported during the first few months. Lena felt nervous but excited. She didn't have a college degree or professional experience beyond her current jobs, but she knew how to work hard, how to stay organized, and how to be honest. And now, someone was giving her a chance to prove herself. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. She resigned from the diner and cleaning jobs. Both of her managers were surprised, but happy for her. One of them even gave her a warm hug and said, "You deserve this, Lena. You've always been special." When she arrived at the Carter Group's office on her first day, she was amazed by how beautiful and modern everything looked. The tall glass building, the soft lighting, the polished floors, it all felt like another world. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. Miss Joanna welcomed her with a bright smile and introduced her to the team. They were friendly and supportive, and no one treated her differently. She was trained on how to manage schedules, attend meetings, take notes, and help organize documents. It was all new, but Lena picked things up quickly. During lunch breaks, she would sometimes see Daniel walking through the halls. He always gave her a polite smile or a gentle nod, but he never made her feel awkward. He treated her just like any Other employee. A few weeks later, Lena received a message from Daniel's office, asking if she could come upstairs to speak with him. Her heart pounded as she rode the elevator to the top floor. She walked into his large office with nervous hands, but Daniel greeted her warmly. "Lena," he said, standing up, "I just wanted to check in." "How are things going?" She smiled shyly. "I'm still learning, but I like it here. Everyone's been so kind." Daniel nodded. "I knew you'd fit in. You're doing better than you think. Joanna says you're already helping organize next month's project timeline." Lena blushed. "I'm just trying my best." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "That's all anyone can ask for." "Max still talks about you, by the way. He said you made his favorite soup that night." Lena laughed. "It was just plain soup. And bread." "Exactly," Daniel said. "And he remembers it like it was the best meal he ever had." That simple line made Lena's heart feel full. She realized that kindness, even the smallest kind, stayed with people. From then on, Lena continued working hard. Her days were still long, but now they had purpose. She wasn't just earning money, she was learning, growing, and becoming a part of something much bigger than herself. One afternoon, while walking through the park near the office, she heard a familiar voice call her name. She turned and saw Max running toward her, smiling. Behind him, Daniel walked at a slower pace, holding a paper bag. "Lena!" Max shouted as he reached her and gave her a quick hug. "We came to feed the ducks!" Lena laughed and knelt down beside him. "That sounds fun. What do you have there?" "Bread," Max said proudly. "Daddy said it's okay just this once." Daniel caught up and smiled. "I figured Max deserved a break. And he was hoping we might run into you." Lena felt her heart grow warm. They sat on a bench together, while Max happily threw crumbs toward a group of ducks swimming in the pond. Daniel and Lena talked about small things, work, books, even favorite foods. It was casual, easy, and pleasant. Over the next few weeks, Lena began seeing Daniel and Max more often outside of work. Sometimes they'd invite her to lunch, other times they'd visit the park or a small museum Max liked. It wasn't fancy, and it never felt forced. Daniel was always respectful, always kind. He never spoke about money or status. He asked Lena questions about her dreams, her favorite books, her childhood memories. She found herself opening up more each time. She didn't know where it was all going, but it felt right. One evening, after walking Max to the car, Daniel looked at her and said softly, "You've brought something back into our lives, Lena. Something we didn't even know we were missing." Lena looked at him with honest eyes. "You and Max gave me a reason to believe again." They didn't speak much after that, but the silence between them was full of meaning. Something beautiful was growing slowly, like a plant that needed sunlight, patience, and care. Back at work, Lena was given more responsibilities. She helped lead a small team on a project, and her ideas were finally being heard. Her coworkers respected her, not because of who she knew, but because of how she worked. She had also started taking online business classes during the evenings. Daniel had gently encouraged her and even helped her register for a course that matched her interests. She never felt pushed, only supported. Her home life improved too. With better pay, she was able to fix her roof and buy a small bookshelf. She even started a little garden in the backyard. For the first time in years, she looked forward to each new day, and deep in her heart, Lena began to understand something important. That one night, when she had opened her door to two strangers, hadn't been a small moment. It had been the start of something bigger than she ever imagined. Lena had never imagined her life would change so much in such a short time. Just a few months ago, she was working long hours, worrying about bills, and living a quiet life full of small hopes. But now, she was part of something bigger. She had a job she cared about, people who respected her, and a growing connection with Daniel and Max that warmed her heart. At the Carter Group, Lena was no longer just an assistant. She had earned the trust of her team and was now helping to plan and lead community outreach projects. Daniel's foundation often partnered with schools, local shelters, and food banks, and Lena's kind nature made her perfect for these projects. She had a way of making people feel seen, no matter who they were. One day, Daniel invited Lena to help him organize a new program. The Carter Foundation was launching a community center in a small neighborhood outside the city. It would offer free tutoring, career training, and health checkups. Daniel asked Lena if she would like to help manage the project. Lena was surprised but excited. "Are you sure I'm the right person?" she asked, unsure of herself. Daniel smiled. "You understand what it's like to struggle. You also know what people need most: kindness, time, and someone to believe in them. That's why you're perfect for this." His words touched her deeply. Lena accepted the offer and began working on the project right away. She visited the neighborhood, spoke with families, and even met with teachers and doctors who would be volunteering. She took notes, asked thoughtful questions, and made sure every small detail was handled with care. As the weeks went on, Lena worked closely with Daniel. Their friendship grew deeper with every conversation. They shared meals during long workdays, talked about books, dreams, and their pasts. Daniel told her more about his journey, how he had once been a young man with little money and big dreams. His company had grown slowly, built on hard work and a deep desire to make a difference in the world. Lena listened with great interest, and every time he spoke she admired him more, not just for his success, but for the goodness in his heart. One evening, after visiting the construction site for the new community center, Daniel and Lena sat on a bench just outside the building. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and gold. Max had fallen asleep in the car, tired from a day of running around. Daniel looked at Lena and said quietly, "You know, Max thinks of you as part of our little family." Lena's heart skipped a beat. "Really?" He nodded. "He talks about you all the time. He asks when he'll see you again." "And I feel the same." Lena looked down, unsure of what to say. She had grown so close to both of them, but she had never expected these words. Daniel continued, "You opened your door to us when we had nothing to offer. No one had ever done that before. You reminded me that not everything in life is about power or money. Sometimes it's about warmth, trust, and simple kindness." Lena's eyes filled with gentle tears, not from sadness, but from the deep, feeling that someone truly saw her. "I care about you, Lena," Daniel said softly, "and I want to be honest about it. But I don't want to rush you or make you feel uncomfortable. I just want you to know." Lena smiled through her tears. "You and Max gave me a reason to dream again. And for the first time, I don't feel so alone." From that moment, something quiet and beautiful grew between them. They didn't rush into anything. They simply continued to share their days, their hopes, and their time together. And slowly, people around them began to notice how natural they were as a team. Back at the company, Lena's success continued. She received praise for her leadership and her ability to bring people together. She didn't become proud or distant. She remained humble, always ready to lend a hand or listen to someone who needed to talk. Even Daniel's business partners began asking about her. Some assumed she was an old friend. Others thought she was part of the board. When Daniel told them she had once worked 3 jobs just to survive, they were amazed. "She's proof," Daniel would say, "that talent and heart are often hidden in the most unexpected places." Meanwhile, the community center's grand opening was approaching. Lena had worked day and night to make sure everything was ready. On the day of the event, families gathered, music played, and children laughed as they ran through the new play area. It was a day full of joy and pride. Lena stood on the stage to say a few words. Her voice shook at first, but she took a deep breath and looked out at the smiling faces. "I used to be someone who felt small," she began. "I thought kindness was a quiet thing, something that didn't change much. But now I know it's the most powerful gift we can give, because kindness brought me here, and it built this center. And it will help so many more." The crowd clapped warmly. Daniel stood at the side, his eyes filled with pride. Max clapped the loudest, his face beaming, after the event. As people took photos and shared hugs, Daniel pulled Lena aside. "There's one more thing I've been thinking about," he said, holding her gaze. "You've become such a big part of our lives, Lena. Max loves you. I trust you. And I think maybe it's time we stop pretending we're just friends. Lena smiled, her heart full. I think so too. He reached for her hand, and for the first time, they walked through the crowd not as strangers, not as CEO and employee, but as two people who had found something special because of one night of kindness, one open door, and one choice to care. As they walked, Max ran up and grabbed both their hands. Can we go get ice cream now? He asked cheerfully. Lena and Daniel laughed. Of course, Daniel said. Let's go. And so, hand in hand, the three of them walked toward a future, full of simple joys, honest love, and a life that none of them had planned, but all of them were grateful for. Months passed, and life continued to grow brighter for Lena. Her days were now filled with purpose, love, and the kind of happiness she had never imagined before. Each morning, she woke up with a smile, ready to take on new tasks at the Carter Group, where she now worked as a trusted project coordinator. She wasn't just an employee anymore, she was part of a team that believed in her, respected her, and celebrated her ideas. At home, Lena had found peace. She had fixed the little things in her small house, the squeaky door, the broken window, and even added colorful curtains and a few flowering plants near the porch. The house still wasn't big, but it was filled with warmth, laughter, and new memories. Daniel and Max visited often. Some days they brought food, other days they brought books, and sometimes they just brought themselves and stayed for hours. They would talk, play board games, or sit quietly in the backyard watching the sky. It was peaceful, and Lena loved those simple moments the most. Max had grown especially close to her. He would call her just to tell her about his school day or ask if he could come over to play. He often told people, Lena is my best friend. That made Lena's heart melt every time. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast together at her house, Max asked an innocent question that left the room silent for a few seconds. Are we a family now? He asked, looking up from his bowl of cereal. Daniel and Lena looked at each other. She smiled gently, and Daniel reached out to hold her hand. Yes, he said softly, I think we are. Max grinned. Good, I already thought so. That moment stayed in Lena's heart for days. She had never chased a perfect life or waited for someone to rescue her. All she ever wanted was to be loved and to be useful. And now, without even planning it, she had found both. Things at the Carter Group were also changing in a good way. Daniel had recently started a new project focused on helping single parents find stable jobs. He asked Lena to lead the team. She felt honored but nervous. I don't have a fancy degree, she said. Daniel replied. You have experience, you have heart. And people trust you, that matters more. So Lena accepted the challenge. She met with struggling parents, designed support programs, and worked with local businesses to offer job training. Every time someone thanked her with tears in their eyes, she felt like her work truly mattered. One day, the company held a special event to celebrate the success of Lena's project. Daniel gave a small speech before handing her a beautiful plaque. She once opened her door to me and my son, Daniel told the audience. At the time, she didn't know who I was. She didn't care about titles or wealth. She saw two people in need and showed them kindness. That moment changed our lives. And now she's changing the lives of so many others. Everyone stood and clapped as Lena stepped forward. She held the plaque in her hands, her voice shaking as she said, I didn't do anything special that night. I just did what my heart told me. And I'm so glad I did, because it brought me here. After the event, as the sun set over the city, Daniel and Lena walked on the rooftop garden of the Carter building. Max was running ahead, pretending to be a superhero with a napkin tied around his neck. Daniel turned to Lena and said, There's something I've been meaning to ask you. Lena looked at him, smiling softly. What is it? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opening it, he revealed a simple, beautiful ring. I don't want a grand moment, he said. I just want a real one. I love you, Lena. I want to spend my life with you, not because you changed me, but because you reminded me of who I really wanted to be. Will you marry me? Lena's eyes filled with tears and her hand flew to her mouth. She nodded slowly, her voice full of emotion. Yes, yes, I will. Max ran back and asked, "What happened?" Lena smiled through tears. "We're going to be a family. A real one." Max jumped up and down with joy. "Does that mean I can call you Mom?" Lena bent down and hugged him tightly. "Only if you want to." "I do," he said, wrapping his small arms around her. From that day forward, life continued to blossom. For them, the wedding was simple, but full of love. It was held at the same community center Lena had helped build. The guests were not high society people, but rather families Lena had helped, co-workers she respected, and neighbors who had seen her journey. She wore a plain white dress, and Max walked her down the aisle, proud and smiling. Daniel waited at the front with tears in his eyes, watching the woman who had changed his world with a bowl of soup and a warm heart. After the wedding, Lena moved into Daniel's home, but she kept her old house. "It's where everything began," she explained. It became a special place, a memory house where they sometimes went to read, garden, or just sit and remember how far they had come years past. Lena continued leading social projects, growing in both confidence and leadership. Max grew older, but never forgot how Lena had once welcomed him like her own. He would often say, "I have two heroes in my life, my dad and my mom." One afternoon, while visiting the old neighborhood, Lena sat on the same bench where she had first shared stories with Daniel. She looked at the small street, the broken fence still leaning to one side, and smiled. That cold, rainy night, when she opened her door to two strangers, she didn't know she was also opening the door to her future. But sometimes the most unexpected moments bring the greatest blessings. And so, the girl who once had little more than hope ended up with a full heart, a beautiful family, and a life filled with meaning, all because of one small act of kindness that changed everything.